I'm Christa Hill.
And I'm Renee Matsella.
And we are the founders of Tacit Edge, a tech education company dedicated to shifting the demographics of women and visible minorities graduating into product management at top companies around the world.
And this is our podcast, Product for Humans, where we explore the human side of product management. We'll answer all your burning questions like, what is product management? What is a product? How do you get started? And why do you belong in product management? That's right, because you belong. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for Product for Humans today. And I want to welcome a very beloved part of our network, Temi, Oyewole. Thank you for joining us today to talk about your wacky, unconventional, wild path into product, which is what this podcast really celebrates, is how unique all of our paths are and what makes us who we are in these roles and why we're all awesome and different and special. So thank you so much for joining us. And why don't you say hello to our podcast folks and tell us a little bit about your background and who you are.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Hello, everyone. My name is Temi Oyewole, and I'm a product manager at HEB Financial right now. I'm a mom and a mother to 3 kids. But yeah, I love being here. I love being a product manager. It is my passion. So yeah, I'm happy to answer all your questions today. I'm glad to be here. So thanks for having me.
Aw, thank you so much for joining us. So let's start at the very beginning. Way when product management was just a twinkle in your eye.
Yeah,
Can you tell us a
for
little
sure.
bit about what were you doing before you were a product manager? Where did you go to school? Like the humble beginnings of where all this started. Can you share a little bit about that with us?
Yes, for sure. So after my master's degree in the UK, I really worked for a company in Nigeria called PwC. You may know it as one of the big fours, but I was a management consultant. So I would do research, problem solving, and all of that. And I really, really liked it. It would be for different industries. So I had this breadth of knowledge, really knowledge everywhere, but it was so fun. But then I decided to relocate to Canada and I wanted to try something different. My family, and I didn't even know what product was or what is product management, but I really loved doing research and problem solving. So I was like, whatever it is that is called, I'm going to do this, continue building these skills because this is what I love. And then I joined Cement. Cement is a tech company here in Calgary. And I would watch this lady called Maxine. Maxine was amazing. She would come and, say, this is the problem we're trying to solve for this group of people. This is how we're going to do it. This is the customer feedback. This is what they're saying is their pinpoint. And I'll be like, oh, so that is what it is called, problem solving, hearing customers' feedback and really being passionate about the problem that you want to solve. And so that is where that twinkling started as the word called product manager. And I'm like, yeah, that is what I was looking for. So yeah, that was how I started in the product world.
So what did it feel like to finally see someone and see that there was a title for the type of work that you wanted to do?
Yeah, I would meet Maxine and say, just tell me about what you do. Like, what is your day like? Because when I joined Cement, I was in the problem identification space. So customers would come and say, this is the problem they're trying to solve. So my team would explain the problem we're seeing to Maxine's team. So Maxine here is the product manager in this story. And so Maxine would say, this is how we're trying to solve the problem. We're hearing the customers' complaints, we're hearing their feedback, but this is how it is, and this is what we're trying to do. So I would hear from her, like, what is your day like? Break it down. And I would meet other product managers in the team as well to kind of understand where it's going. And then I decided that, okay, I think I need to do this, but how? What do I need to do? Where do I start from? And that was where it started. And because I love to research, of course, either stuff with your wonderful self, Renee and Krista, as part of the SAGE program. And, you guys are like, yeah, product is for you. Like, if you ever had any doubts that you could do this, you are going to be amazing. You have all of the skills. And then I'm not going to forget to mention Oliver. Oliver is a part of your team as well. Oliver listened to me, like, the experience that I brought from Nigeria. I know a lot of people would say, oh, I brought this experience. I don't know how it's going to fit and all of that. I had Oliver listen to me and she crafted my resume and the value that I brought. And I'm like, oh my God, is this me? Like, did I actually do all of these, 4 years or 5 years ago in Nigeria? But I would say that I had a lot of human help along the journey. So yeah.
Oh, that is so awesome. And I love what you just brought up there around having someone else craft your resume and your story of your experience. I can't tell you how many times I've seen Renee do this for folks, and I read what she writes about how she digests your experience, the value that you can bring in words that you would never use yourself because it's you. And it is such a powerful tool in the pivot. I would say for you to see yourself the way that we see you, which is an ultimate confidence booster on top of the competence that you're learning. Can you describe a little bit of how something like that just made you feel on the inside and what then your job search looked like once you had that, Temi?
Yeah, for sure. So when Oliver crafted the resume, I'm like, well, I did all of this, right? But I wouldn't have put it in this word about this is the value I can bring to you as a team. And so I just had that resume. I wasn't even applying for a job then. So continuing my cement story, I had to go on maternity leave. And so I heard all about, what a product manager did. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess this is it. I don't know how I'm going to get into this field again if I'm going out, which is maternity leave, the 1 year, 18 months, or whatever it is going to be. But what I then decided to do as well, maybe I would not be a product manager in cement, but I could be anywhere else. And so during my maternity leave was the time that I decided to actually go for to be with Tacit Edge and SATE and really learn about what that is going to look like. And so I had my resume and then I went for the course. And then it was during my course that an opportunity came up to say, would you want to interview for a product manager role? I'm like, okay, I have my resume, but I've never had to say it out loud to anyone that this is the value I'm going to bring to your team as a product manager. But you know what? I went for it anyways. From all of the content of the course to my resume and how it was crafted in a way that I'm still wild today. I mean, it was just like the team were like, yeah, would you like to meet with the head of product or head of tech at the time? And I'm like, okay, this is getting real. This is something. So that was a very important milestone in my product journey.
Wow. So what did it feel like to see you go from like this resume where you're seeing, oh, I do have a ton of relevant experience to going to the interview and then having people validate and say, yeah, you do have all this relevant experience. Like, what did that feel like?
Oh yeah, that confidence just went to top notch because I'm like, well, I did all of this. So I might as well, tell everyone that I can do this and the value that I brought. So at the time, I was interviewing for a product manager with Virtual Gurus. Apart from everything you needed to do in your job search, learn about the company and all of that. I went to that interview with the fact that, well, you guys know that I've never done this as a product manager before, right? So I'm telling you everything that I did before, but what I could do going forward with everything that I know. But I'm like, okay, let's see where this takes us. And the fact that I was given a thumbs up at the first interview to go forward for the next interview, I'm like, yeah, I can do this. I can be maxing here kind of thing. So yeah, that was a really good boost. And yeah, and I eventually, got the role and I was in Virtual Gurus for a while.
And
Sorry, Renee, go ahead.
yeah, well, I was going to kind of carry on from that. Like, what were the things in your past that were like, oh, I can do this, that really stood out to people?
Yeah. I mean, so as a management consultant, I had a lot of skills, problem solving, really being passionate about the problem that you're trying to solve, communicating the value that you bring as a consultant. You had to wow your clients because they're paying a lot of money, especially if it's PwC. So it's that communicating the value, a lot of writing, a lot of PowerPoint slide, a lot of research, a lot of saying that I have listened to people that have this problem and this is what they're saying. So interviewing skills and all of those things were things that I did before that as a product manager, it comes in handy. And of course, there's this gap that, I wasn't doing as a product manager. I hadn't worked with maybe UX designer, but I'd worked with people. And it's just, having that people skills, having that to communicate with people, telling them what you're doing so it doesn't matter what they're called now, like, UX or dev. Of course, everyone has their, how you tweak and communicate with them, but there were still people that you needed to communicate with and bring with you on the journey. So yeah, that was very helpful.
Oh, all of those adjacent skills, they're so relevant and like topical. And if you're out there right now listening and you're saying to yourself, I do that stuff, you're right, you do. It's right here, right? Product is such a complement to skills that you already have. And I would say it almost brings to the surface some of the things that we love the best about our jobs, which is that cross-functional interaction and the satisfaction of solving problems and moving people forward. So, I mean, I'm just projecting myself right now onto this whole conversation, like all the things that I love about product. But Temi, can you like even from those management consulting days to where you are today, what would you say are the top 3 things that you love the most about practicing product right now?
Yeah. And my current boss tells me that, this comes naturally to me, but I don't know. But it is really communicating with people. It is bringing people along the journey that it's not just you that solved this problem. You had the UX brain, you had the dev brain in all of these. You communicated with stakeholders, right? Sometimes you have to have strong people, but that's the point of it. But you bring people along the journey and say that we did this. So I love that part of product management because it's not I built this or I contributed this. It is the we part of it because I feel like when you're saying we did this, whoever is getting that value, it knows that, you've considered people, you're diverse, you're inclusive, and you brought all of these people along to solve the problem. So that's one thing I like about product and problem solving as well. So going deep, I love doing research. I mean, I research everything, even food, even and all of that. So the research and, getting into that problem space is really, really, I'm passionate about that. And another thing I would say is when you have to share like the value that you brought. So measuring success, you say, okay, we've identified this problem, you've communicated it, but then you've done something to do it. Well, great. But what impact did that make, right? What needle did that move? Did you allow people so people can now? So, for example, I'd worked on project in the past about people contributing money online. So the needle with that is saying that maybe you solve the problem of people didn't have to do it manually again. So people can now save X number of times instead of doing it for 1 hour, they can now do it for 5 minutes. So people have saved time. So sharing that story, seeing it from top to bottom or from problem to impact is one of the most passionate moment about product management for me.
That, yeah, the
I
way
love
you
that from problem to impact. What a nugget. I mean, that's it, right? That is the satisfying work. It's so great to hear it framed that way.
Yeah, and this is where I think we mentioned in a lot of the promotions where there's that Timmy, you're just like such a natural product person because that ability to like hone in on a measurement like that is so simple but so impactful is it's really difficult. How have you been able to zero in on something like that simple of a measurement?
Yeah. So I would say that when you speak to customers and you're hearing the problem and you're even carrying them along the way. So, you did this solution, you're like, okay, come test it for us. This is a prototype. You're getting that feed. So you're getting the momentum, like maybe I need to take a step back or maybe I need to move forward. When you get the impact and you're seeing that, this is the value that you've brought, it is that feeling of, oh, I did this for this person. And sometimes you have customers coming back to say, I felt amazing just by using your product, or I saved this number of times just by using your product. It is that feeling that makes me keep going. Like we can make an impact. Sometimes it's little, sometimes you don't even hear feedback, or sometimes you go ask for it. Maybe you need it to keep going for the next project. So I like all the flexibility that product management gives to you because there's no one size fits all. You might be looking for feedback, but you might not get it. So you might need to go ask for it, right? Some teams have researchers, for example, like they dig into the problem space, but you might not have it on your team. So what do? You wear the ads and, you're flexible and you can get all of those skills and, make an impact at the end of the day.
I love that. And so that's, I mean, these skills of going out and getting the information that you need, right? One nugget of information at a time to make the next right decision. Can you tell us where you go? Because I mean, early days in your career of product management, anyways, it can be a little fire hosey. I'm sure you've experienced that. And your career path breaking in and now where you are now, how many years has it taken you to get where you are right now?
Yeah. So I would say from 2019 to 2024, that's about 5 years.
Yeah. So you're 5 years in.
Yes.
Where do you go now based on everything that you've experienced and everything that you've seen now in product and of course in your life when things get really overwhelming and it gets a little hard and the problem is hard? Where do you go? What in your mind helps you move yourself and the teams forward?
Yeah. First thing, I just take a step back because I know that sometimes I get into the weeds of stuff and I'm so overwhelmed with information. So there's a lot of information out there. But I just take a step back. I could do something totally different. And I lean on my team a lot. So as a product manager, a lot of people expect that you have answers to everything, right? But sometimes you just need to ask the right questions, which is why, working with your team is very important. You're asking the UX, you're asking the dev, what do you think? You're asking your product leader because showing that you're in the weeds and you're reaching out for help is definitely something that they would like to see. And apart from, reaching out to the team and all of that, I listen to a lot of product leaders, a lot of podcasts. My Tacit Edge material is still with me there. Sometimes I just need a slide to just communicate the value that I brought. And I just, bring out my Tacit Edge slides that you guys have said. This has worked like for thousands of companies. Like, so why wouldn't it work for me? So bringing out that nugget, remembering that I'm not the first person that's going through this. I have listened to a lot of experiences that people have shared. That has also helped me along the way. I just know I have the Tacit Edge community as a background. Sometimes you guys know I come vent to you and I'm like, okay, what would you guys do in this situation? So, having that community behind you, leaders that rooting for you, that want you to succeed, you can be open and just say, I'm struggling with this and move forward from there.
Yes, the community is here. I'm so happy to hear you say that because Chris and I we talk about like when we go on TikTok or read like product management subreddit. It seems like all that's happening is people like complaining and being burnt out and finding it so difficult. So you touched on like community helping to get through some of those difficult moments, but where do you where do you find joy in your work? Because you seem so joyful about you. You can tell you love what you do. So where does that come from? Where do you find it?
Yeah. To space, I just need to think about the end. Like sometimes at the beginning, you think about this is the vision of where I want to go. But sometimes you forget that vision, especially when you're in the weeds of, okay, this is the problem, this is the solution, which solution would work best, which customer would like this. But you sometimes just need to bring the vision back and say, this is the outcome we're looking to move. Remembering that that is the impact you want to make. You're like, yeah, let's get into it. Let's do it again. Let's try again and see if we can move the needle. So having that vision in front of you, sometimes, you're bringing it back to the team. You're like, we know we're on this track, but let's just see this is the outcome that we're hoping to drive. And bringing it back to the team, communicating what the impact we could have if we do this is one thing that I've always relied on.
Oh, I love that. And can you tell us, even from a feedback perspective, right? We've talked about like the journey in and where you are now. And, normally at 5 years in, sometimes we hit a little bit of a wall, right, in our careers. And we coach and mentor a lot of mid-stage career professionals. And they're like, I just can't make the next move. I just can't, like, we're here and we're always here. Can you talk about the role of feedback for how you practice versus like how you would get it for your products? Can you share a little bit about like how that has shown up in your career over your time practicing?
Yeah. And this will be the time that I was maybe month 8 at Virtual Gurus. I just didn't know what to do. I just didn't know how to move forward. I'm like, well, I've learned all of this. I've listened to a lot of articles. I've seen a lot of product being built and how it was built, but I just couldn't move forward. And at this point, Tacit Edge was doing the product management for professionals. And that's for people practicing in product. So it wasn't just me, it was other product managers from other companies. And so everyone would come. It was not recorded. It was an open space for you to share like the problem you're actually going through, facing as a product manager. And that program was just a game changer for me because I felt like, oh, I'm not in this alone. And I could hear other people's example of this is how I've navigated this block. Maybe you couldn't move forward because um, customer feedback is not coming. You don't even know what to build next. Like, how do you move forward from that? So hearing from other people on how they've navigated it, sharing my examples and hearing from Renee and Chris that I've worked with, other global organizations was very helpful, which is why I always say the community space is something that has worked for me. I would never take it for granted because I'm like, where do I go from here? What do I know really, right? I have done all of these, but I need to have that circle that has done it before that I could, they're out of the problem and so they can give you fresh perspective on how things are going, which is why, I'm never leaving. So just so you know.
Oh, well, you're stuck with us too if it's any consolation.
Oh yeah, no, you're, we're gonna constantly be
Checking up.
yeah.
I love that community. And, sometimes folks, when they sign up for a course and they're like, well, is it going to be recorded because I have to miss a session? And we always just say, you know what? We can't record this stuff. There's so much that existing and current product managers need to get off their chest and to share in a place where folks really understand what they're going through. And I love how you shared that experience that you can just show up and be yourself and just admit that the answers aren't always immediate and that there's doubt sometimes as you're delivering some big thing in the room and everyone really thinks that you're the beacon of being all knowing when we need to be all curious and all learning. And how do we balance that in the room and stay influential and stay feeling like everyone's safe and secure and we know just right enough and we're doing okay. I don't think we talk about that enough of the weight of that in the room for us. And to do the kind of work that we do, people need to feel safe and they need to feel like we're making great decisions. And that's no easy feat along with the totality of the job. Right. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Holy cow. I have so many questions, Renee.
I know, yeah, it is. I'm like on that because that is such a challenge where with in product management, you have to be a leader. You lead through influence. We lead by inspiring people. And then at the same time, we have to be the most curious and open to knowing that we really know nothing all the time. When we're building new product for problems that haven't been solved before, there's way more unknown than known. How do you find that balance with being a trusted leader while also being open and curious and acknowledging that we don't know everything?
Yeah. I mean, my team at ATB, they're amazing. I mean, you can always come into the room and say, this is what I think. You tell me as the expert. I mean, I'm just a product manager. You are in the code, you're in the weed. That vulnerability, that transparency, they just keep going and keep talking as if this is how it works. And so with that information, you can go to your stakeholder and be confident that this is what is going on. This is how you built it. You've listened to them. And so, everyone says, oh, PMs must have all the answers, but that is not even true. So I would say what has worked for me, lean on your team. If it's a design question, like go to your designers, be curious, try and find out, how they got here, what they were thinking. Sometimes as a product manager that has worked in a startup before, I've had to do wireframes, a sketch, and I've done some design work, but allowing the experts to go to town and come back with the value that they bring, it empowers them. And so they trust you so that when you're coming to ask those questions, because stakeholders have 100 questions that they want to ask that, you're going back with lots of information that this is what we bring as a team. This is what we know so far. This is what we've done. And this is what we're going to do at this time. Sometimes it might change, but you're coming back. You're communicating constantly and you're not ghosting them. So that has always helped me so far.
So amazing. And so let's go a little deeper now into that because you described that shift between how you're operating now at ATB versus a startup environment that fuels virtual gurus. A huge success story in big growth, which is much different than say a more enterprise style organization of what you might be doing. And we talk to people all the time about how role of product manager in startup is different. Even though we're fueled by problems and opportunities and chasing those things, our activities might be a little different because we have different tools, different team structures in which we're operating. So can you share a little bit about what that leap was like from practicing product in a startup to the differences you've observed now being in enterprise?
Yeah, for sure. That is very interesting. Um, when I was at Virtual Guru, and I'm thankful that I started at Virtual Gurus for sure. So thanks to the Virtual Gurus both for giving me that opportunity. I would wear different hats as a startup because you're constantly experimenting, continue to find problem fits, solution fits, whatever it is called. But yeah, you're going into that space, you're wearing different hats. At Virtual Gurus, I would, do research, work with marketing to do, the product release plan, how we go to market and all of that. You were all being as the product manager. And that's amazing. And so when I decided to take the lead to ATB, I wanted to just see what it's like. What is product management in an established organization? Like, what does it look like? And it is different. I mean, you still use your skills for sure. But one of the differences I've seen is you could have a researcher on your team because they're experts in their field. They're diving into the problem space. But because of my background, I am not going to answer off and allow the researcher go. We're communicating. I'm like, what are you finding? Have you tried this method? Because I've tried it before. But that luxury as well sometimes gives you time to focus on the problem. So you know that someone's got that space handled. Of course, you're asking questions and you're following through. But as a product manager, you need to make sure that there is focus on the problems you're solving because the research could bring like 40 problems that you need to solve. So how do you prioritize? How do you make sure you're solving the most important problem? So that is where, you need all the focus and bring in your full product manager skills to say, this is the one I think is going to have the most impact at this time with the resources that we have that we can finish in the sprint. So all of that is, the value that working in a structured or in a bigger company can bring you. Yeah.
Yes. And so with that, like making the tough decisions, the critical thinking of what's most important to focus on, thinking back at your whole career, what is the problem you're most proud of working on?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So this one I'm going to share my passion project. So when I finished Tacit Edge, because of all the perks of working of, doing one of the courses, my friends and I decided to solve a problem that we thought people from my background, immigrants coming to Canada were facing. And one of that is, having cash to do stuff without going to the bank to get loans and all of that. We've heard stories of people being turned back, of people not given credit card to do what they want to do. But there's this contribution style back in Nigeria that is called Ajo, or a more formalized name for it is Roska. And so we knew that people would come together, contribute money, and people would take turns for who takes the bulk of the money. So my friends and I decided to, build a product for that, like solve the problem. That was so close to my heart because we experienced it as newcomers. And we had this group of women, sometimes 20 in a group or 40 in a group, that are looking to have that bulk money to do something significant, maybe build their basement or pay their children's fees or send money home, whatever the case may be. But that is one problem that my friends and I digged into, did a lot of customer research, a lot of feedback, a lot of reaching out to people in the financial world, even to Platform Calgary to say, what does this look like? How to remove this forward? So today, we have not proceeded to launch it, but the fact that we went through all of that cycle, the problem space, it builds my confidence as a product manager. As an entrepreneur, I understood, how you need to get the problem space right. So even if you're passionate about this is the problem I want to solve, you need to also think about the business outcomes. What is that going to bring for the business? Because you want to keep the lights on, right? You don't want to solve this problem and close the shop, right? You want to continue. So that is one of the problems that to today, it is still there to my ad. What we've done, even if we didn't build a tech for it, we still have those cycles. We still have those women doing all of that on an informal channel. So that is one example.
Oh my gosh, Temi, and that's Victoria, that your partner in crime was,
Yeah,
right? You talk
Victoria
about
down here, yes,
Victoria
sir.
as well. Yeah. I just I love all this, how we're practicing product. We're able to also take those same lessons, build great businesses because we know how to, and what you just demonstrated there is how you took something that was really big that could have turned into a really big thing where people would say to you, well, you have to be a bank. What about insurance? What about interest? What about all these things? And you can say, no, we're going to keep it really simple. We're going to build this little thing to help you get this off the ground. And then we will test and see how it goes. And then we can build on top of that. And that is managing your runway, right? And keeping things viable so that you can get to the next place in the build or the next thing that you might want to do. Gives you options. And as, women entrepreneurs, this is the key. We know we're not always going to get selected for funding. The stats tell us that we don't. So how might we use product management as an acumen to build a successful business for ourselves and self-fund it in a way that's realistic and stimulating, creative, and just amplifies your career because you have the practice just in your blood. It's so impressive.
Yeah, it really is in your blood, Temi. And how did you see um what mistakes did you avoid as an entrepreneur because you had your product management acumen?
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of people are trying to do this in India. And while researching I even met a guy on LinkedIn that we, booked this session together. I said, well, I tried to do this. It didn't work. And so as a product manager, digging into the problem space, I mean, we spent over 6 months just trying to understand how can we do this? We know this is a problem, but how? And, how can we bring it here? Because it's a different climate. It's a different business environment. So as a product manager, I knew we couldn't just launch or pay a developer to just build a tech product because it's like, who are your users? Are they going to pay for this? And all of that. So sitting in that problem space for a long time, trying to make sure that the value that you bring, if people think it's valuable enough. So sometimes one of the customers told us, well, I'm comfortable doing it here. I don't want to use a tech product to do this. And the other was saying, well, I don't want to pay for this. I don't want to have to part with my money. Of course, we thought of all of that, and there could be other solutions to go to market with. But we knew at the point that we were going to launch with this because we weren't going to get the business wasn't going to get a value out of it. We know it is still a problem today. So if anyone is willing to chat more about that, I'm open to, keep chatting about it. But as a product manager, that was something we decided on the team that we weren't going to go to market with because just couldn't afford to launch and not be successful.
And that is the most courageous conversation you can have in product is when you do nothing and you walk away, right? Before you spend too much, before you take something to market that you already know. We all have stories of things that we were developing for a really long time and we just knew were not actually going to solve the problem. But sometimes when the wheel is rolling, you feel obligated to see it through. And I think this is one of the most powerful calls to courage in product that we can have is sometimes it's standing up and saying, you know what, we've learned a lot in this process. Why don't we take a step back and reconsider, learn more before we develop what our next point of action might be? Because I agree with you. I think the financial services industry in Canada is not equipped to support newcomers. We have to be more creative. And I know that, banks are just not set up for the set of circumstances to which a very large segment of the population is facing. So this chapter, that's just a couple of chapters in this story. I'm convinced. I don't know about you, Renee, but I see a future. I'm already living in the future, Temi, of where this problem is solved and you and Victoria have figured it out. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's such an important, thank you so much for sharing this, that you stuck with the problem for so long, because we've seen countless entrepreneurs not question their first idea for a solution, go straight to developers, waste hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then they realize, oh, this actually might not be viable, or we aren't solving a real problem. And you avoided that and worked on this incredible problem while also honing your product management skills. I'm curious how, we asked how the product management skills helped you in entrepreneurship, but how did that experience then help you in your job now as a product person?
Oh, yeah. When I'm speaking with customers, because I've spoken to a lot of them, sometimes it comes from a place of frustration. So their feedback is from a place of frustration. And so if you take that and run with it without, digging deep into the root cause of the problem, you know that you're just solving for maybe one person. So there's this time that although you're gathering the feedback from NPS surveys, from talking to people face to face, you need to then come up with the actual problem and the outcome you want to drive. And so because I'd spent this time as an entrepreneur, trying to work on Round Wallet was the name, by the way, trying to work on Round Wallet, I know that I'm equipped to not just run with a problem or an idea and try to build it, because I need to understand if it's going to give me the outcome I'm looking for. In the case of Round Wallet, it was to help people be able to afford the life that they wanted to live. It was to help people not be in debt. And so if the solution is not going to, move the needle or remove someone from debt, or they cannot say, well, I had to pay 14% interest to get this much from the bank, then I haven't solved the problem. And so that mindset stuck with me, that whatever problem I'm working on or whatever product I'm building, I'm just thinking of the impact I'm going to make and making sure that our solution can actually do that.
And all of that you just said is measurable.
Yeah.
Hacking.
All measurable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is so eye-opening. We say hey, we want to help people save money, and if we're building a product that they have to monetize it, we're kind of going against our outcome here, and that's why focusing on problems above solutions is so important.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. A lot of examples, but yeah, that one for sure.
Yeah. And I do just want to give a shout. So folks in online, please submit your questions for Temi. As you can see, she is an absolute product. I don't know, like product incarnate is what it's called. Krista and I think Temi is
All of
product.
the things. You have it all, Temi. This is, and we weren't kidding when you just feel like you meet somebody who was born into this, who just lives it. And it's just, it runs through every part of you. And it's so impressive to see how these skills, and, I got to be curious, as you said, you're a mom of three. How does product management help you at home?
Oh yeah, prioritization, delegating, empowering, inspiring people.
Yeah. Getting user feedback.
Business feedback. Yeah. So yeah, my husband is very supportive of me. I mean, he loves his career as well, and he loves my career for me. So a lot of delegation, a lot of it's your turn to take this. A lot of okay, let's outsource this because this is not our expertise. So for sure, product management every day.
That is so amazing. Well, I think when we think about your journey, and like I said, you've been in this about 5 years, what would be a piece of advice that you would give Temi 5 years ago, new to Canada, questioning probably a lot of things in her life? What's the piece of advice that got her to I could?
Yeah. One, I mean, don't be afraid to reach out to people to ask questions. I mean, if you're curious, what's the worst that can happen? No. And then you move on to the next person, right? So for me, when I was curious about product management, or I didn't even know what it was called, I just booked a meeting and say, can you tell me more about what you do? I would introduce myself because sometimes people want to hear what you bring, the skills you have. Sometimes because you're an immigrant, and so people don't even have an idea if you bring any value at all. So sometimes you have to open those communication with this is what I do, this is what I've done before. And so, that can allow people to say, oh, okay, this person might be interesting. Let me know what they have to say, kind of thing. And so reaching out to people that are doing what you think is interesting, you might not even know if that's the path that you want to take, and asking those questions is definitely, one of the things that I would advise for anyone that is looking to move or change career or even do something different from what they're doing, and being curious, right? So I realized that, oh, I have all of the skills, but then there's this part that I didn't know, that I didn't, how do I break in and how do I get the skills? Which is when I found Tacit Edge and Say Cost. And so having that hands-on experience to work on a project at the time, we were able to work with a UX designer on a real project. It was so scary because I'm like, oh my God, we don't want to close someone's company because of all of these, but the support that we had, that, you've gone through this training, and they know that, you guys are students. And so they're giving you all the support. They're encouraging you to try and fail and learn from it. So that was definitely helpful. And as a product manager till today, the learning never stops, right? You're curious. You see a new app today. You're like, oh, what's the problem these guys are trying to solve, and how did they do it? And you're following their journey just to keep learning, right? You're listening to podcasts like this. Like, I know, wasn't the podcast the last one? Sandy. Sandy was,
Sandy.
you're right. It was a 1 hour session. I mean, Sandy is an industry leader. Like, why would I not listen to Sandy? Even if people think, oh, Temi is successful, well, learning never stops. So I would come listen to people that are doing this, that have done this, that are leaders in this space, because there's always something to learn. So continuous learning for sure is helpful.
And I want to squeeze out one more nugget from you, just because there's more to your story. It's the day job, sure, but then that advice for the women out there who have a product idea, and what can you walk us through what got you to the point in your mind where you could ask yourself, what if I could build Round Wallet? Can you give your previous self a little bit of advice on taking the leap and betting on yourself?
Yeah. I mean, my friends and I thought about this for a long time. Like our husbands would even encourage us, like, you guys go for this. I remember Esther's husband, he had built a company before in Nigeria. And so he would say, if you guys don't try, you never know, right? So because it was a problem that we were passionate about, which is like number one thing, like you need to care about the problem first because you would then spend time, you spend meetings, you meet people and all of that. So one, passionate about the problem that you're trying to solve, and just do it, like with the resources you have. So it was scary at the point that we started because we're like, how would we afford a dev to build this? How would we register a business? So we, as women and my friends and I were very similar that sometimes we think about the future, like 5 years from now. How do we get there, even if we haven't started today? So, coming back to say, well, let's one day at a time, let's see what impact we can make today. And then tomorrow, what can we meet? Who is in this industry that have done it before? Is there grants available? Like, you never know what is out there when if you haven't spoken to someone about what you're trying to do. And we got a lot of support that we didn't have to spend so much money for.
Yeah. Yeah. You can start for free.
Free.
You can get a long way on free and in an afternoon's worth of work. It's incredible. I think people just think there's only one story and there's only one way because it's the one we've seen on TV, right? Where everybody's driving a Ferrari and the overnight success, which doesn't, that's not the real world. And, patience and just that belief, that core belief in yourself that yes, you can. And what can you do this afternoon? Make it small. Take the really big thing that you think is really big, make it smaller. What can I do this afternoon with my friends, with my, a trusted peer, or just on my own? What could happen? Right? Temi, your story is so powerful. We love you so much. Oh.
And Temi, so we're talking to female entrepreneurs, but also your story as an immigrant coming to Canada and finding your place in product leadership. We have a lot of folks feeling like their international experience somehow doesn't count here. What do you say to folks who are feeling down about their experience not being recognized here?
Yeah. And that's a totally valid feeling, by the way, because sometimes you might have heard someone say, well, I don't recognize this certification that you brought and all of that. So I would say outside the, CSP or whatever acronym those certifications are, try to show the value you bring. Like that's cue of what you've done, that contribution, that XX number of profit increase or revenue driving stuff that you've done, that problem that you solved is what you should show, is what you should speak to. So sometimes, you don't have to start a conversation with, I have an MSc in this, that will come later, like when they're trying to be curious about you because you've shown that you can bring something to the table, that would come after. So, meet people, introduce yourself, tell them about the value you've contributed to, about how things have changed because you were part of a team, and show that first. And I think that should open doors for you, for people to say, okay, I can hear what you're talking about first.
Yes. Oh, for everyone out there thinking that there's no way through that, it's showing, not telling. That's the cheat code. Show, don't tell.
Yeah.
And then the telling part falls away. The showing says it all.
Yeah. Oh, Temi, that advice, I think, and that's for everybody too. Anybody in the job search, we see so much like on resumes. Like I wrote a strategy. And you're like, oh, okay.
How did it go?
How'd it go? What did it do? And when we tell that story of what we've done, like your story around creating Round Wallet, the problem you're solving, you're just instantly hooked when you hear that story and you're shown what you did, why it mattered, who you're serving. You could have told that story from anywhere. You could have done that in Canada. You could have done it in Nigeria. You could have done it in the UK. Doesn't matter. It's so impactful.
Oh, so awesome.
All right. Well, We're going to do one more call, folks, online. We're here for another few minutes. If you have questions for Temi, please throw them in the chat. She There's so much to learn here, whether you're an entrepreneur or wanting to pivot into products. Temi is your person. Please share your questions. Oh, here we go. Oh, I love this. I'm just going to share this. Amazing. Temi is an inspiration, a true embodiment of if you dream it, you can do it. Could not agree more. Temi, how does it feel to see that from one of our friends online?
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it for sure. Yeah. I did that out to, inspire or anything, but I wanted to say that I tried. I tried to do it and I did it. Right. And so at the beginning, when I had people reaching out to share my story, I was like, okay, what did I do here? And so I started realizing that, a lot of people like me also trying to do the same thing. And since then, it's been, yeah, for sure. Bombard me with the questions, and I would try and, do what I got as well, which is speaking with people and people answering me for sure. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Temi. Well, I don't see questions coming in, just people commenting on how inspiring you are, which I think we can all agree with. So maybe we'll give you the last word, Temi, for everybody who's watching, maybe sitting on the sidelines, thinking about what they want to do next. What do you have to say to them?
Yeah, just go for it, man. Don't lean back, because if you don't do it now, someone else is going to do it. And you're going to say, that could have been me because I could do it. Right. So you don't want to say that. One thing I realized when I wanted to do product, when I would look at magazine, what I can do, X, Y, Z, like all of these things, right? But I haven't had the opportunity or the platform to do it. So recognizing that skill that you bring, the value you bring, is that first push that can say, well, I can do X, Y, Z, but maybe I can do ABC. Then I'm going to learn how to do ABC. So being open, recognize the value you bring, because I'm sure everyone has something in there. Everyone has a value that they bring. But recognizing that and making sure that, you upskill and keep learning along the way. So don't stop, keep going. And I'm sure you get to where you see yourself.
Yeah. Oh, so great. And just to summarize a couple of the nuggets that you shared with us, the journey on your resume was obviously a huge turning point. I think that reframing of your previous experience towards something product focused, which is reframing it into what does the company have or the team have that they didn't have before X project, right? So if you have a lot of tactical work in your background and you're struggling articulating that value, again, show the thing that they have after, thanks to that work that they didn't have before, and reframe everything there and have someone re-articulate it back to you, even if it starts in Chat GPT. If you don't have a person, I just say to you, like, we have so many great stories. And I know, there's a lot of back and forth in industry around AI tools and the impact of them. But if you need an editor, it is such a great place to have someone reframe and just try it for yourself. And then again, another human being, it's amazing to do that for you. But if you're all on your own with it, just give that a try and then read that. There will be things in there that you would not have said about yourself that are also true. And I love how you were able to really see that the resume was a huge confidence booster instead of something that you were feeling self-conscious about. And then in the interview, you were able to really just draw on that confidence and bring it through and lean into who exactly you already knew you were. But the framing and just that little nudge to get back into your confidence was all it took for you to have everything that you have today. So many great nuggets here. I can't thank you enough, Temi, for your time and for sharing your journey with us, and for us to even be in your sphere. I have to tell you, we are so proud of you and that we know you and that you're a part of that we've created anything that you can tap into that has helped you any way along the way to unlock things that you already had, but just somebody just flicking the door for you to change your perspective just really speaks to the power of mentorship and community and finding the people that see you. And I think that can show up in many different ways in this world. And we are just so incredibly proud of you. Holy
Oh,
cow,
yeah.
Temi.
So
Just
I
in
am
4 or 5, you know?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it for sure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Temi. Oh my gosh. Well, for the last second here, I will plug. So if this was interesting to you, if folks online, we are sharing a masterclass next week. Same time, I just shared a link in the comments there. So if you want to learn the secrets that Temi and so many others have used to pivot into product management, please join that webinar. And Temi, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having me.
Thank you all. We will see you next week in the masterclass. Thanks, Temi.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, rate and review this podcast, and you might find your review in a future episode. Please subscribe to Product for Humans wherever fine podcasts are downloaded. To get more information about Product for Humans and our content, please visit our website at tacit-edge.com, tacit-edge.com. We'll see you next time. Okay? Should we do it one more time?
Sweet. Yeah, let's do it.